Zaid. Sorry. Are we live? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome to our second edition of the Convo podcast. I've got here with me our co-host, Sufyan Badr, and today, inshallah, we've got a very exciting podcast lined up for you. A few interesting additions as well, inshallah, that are going to allow for everyone to be a little more interactive this time around. But we thought we'd start it off in a bit more of an interesting fashion. So with our last podcast, one thing we realized was that we kind of went a little beyond what we wanted to in terms of the length of it, right? So I've decided to set Sufyan a challenge. He is going to introduce this podcast, the topic, what we're going to talk about, subpoints, explanations, detailed analysis, everything.
And write a thesis on it.
All of it in 60 seconds, right? So that's his challenge. I think he hasn't rehearsed it. It's on the spot, right? So I'm going to give it to him. So we're going to he wants to start a countdown timer. So you can count yourself down.
All right. So can we get a countdown timer in 3, 2, 1? All right. So this episode, by the way, before I start, I just wanted to say that I don't really get going with deadlines until I think the anxiety kicks in. So I feel like I don't really need the full 60 seconds, and I'm just going to see how this runs. All right. We got coronavirus being Hajj being quote unquote cancelled this year. We want to know in this episode what that's going to look like. We'll show you some pictures. We're also going to have a look at what Hajj sort of looks like more generally compared to say 20, 30 years ago. The fact that, there's a big irony to it. We're sort of moving away from the materialism and the consumerism of life, and we're sort of moving into this time. Counter is really stressing me out.
Very intimidating. 10 seconds.
The fact that Hajj has become devoid of that spirit, but also generally religion, religious celebrations, and Eid, and how that has become devoid of spirit, and what lessons we can learn for future generations.
2,
oh, snap.
1, and done. Can we get that sound? That
What do you mean? I got it done on time. These guys planned it.
You
Can we
so
move
didn't
to our
get it
introduction
done.
video, please?
No. All right. Welcome to the podcast, the Convo.
That's all right. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum from me as well. Hamza managed to do his introduction. But hello to everyone back home listening in to us. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's absolutely lovely to have you today. We do have a few things in store for you guys today, inshallah. We do spend some of our time between episodes thinking about how we can improve this. Obviously, we're very new to this sort of game, and we want to see how we can introduce new features, engaging features. So we do have a little something for you. I know we've been a little cryptic about it in the lead up to this podcast for those of us who have been following on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, we will be taking, inshallah, live calls towards the end of this podcast. And inshallah, just a little bit about, I gave you a little introduction on what we're going to be talking about, Hajj, Eid, how it's been commercialized and the materialism of it, and also just Eid generally, like it's a crazy 2020 Eid coming up, very similar to the Eid al-Fitr as well, which was obviously very different. You don't have those massive gatherings in the park, the Eids in the park, the massive Eid prayers in the masajid. It's all very, very different, just like the Taraweeh experience was sort of very, very different and unique to us. Another one of those, unique sort of Eids is coming up. So a little bit about that, and then, lessons that we can learn from. This is me finishing off my introduction.
Yeah, he's just stealing extra time now. Like, this shouldn't count.
Yeah, maybe I should have prepped for that 60-second intro. Anyway, let's get on to our first topic, inshallah. And maybe just before we do, guys, Facebook. This is obviously being streamed to Facebook.
Live on Facebook and Instagram, as well, as I understand.
And feel free to leave comments. Like, we really do. Like, we've got our phones with us, and we're going to be checking our Facebook and our Instagram for comments. Last time we had a brother or two, a few people, some brothers and sisters of leaving comments during live transmission, and it's excellent to like have a conversation between ourselves and then see your comments and read them out as you type them, or maybe just after you type them, and then engage.
Not staring over your shoulder watching you type.
Okay, so first things first, we want to talk about what Hajj is going to look like given the fact that we've got coronavirus now. So did you want to intro this part?
Yeah, so we all know pandemic around the world, massive issues, dramas, and so forth. And Hajj is not immune. Like, I was just thinking that if the West is cancelling things like their sporting events, which are like their holy grail, like their Hajj, then surely that means that something's up, right? Not that we take them as the barometer, but nonetheless, right? It's serious. And so Hajj has definitely been affected. Saudi has basically said it's not cancelled. Right, Hajj has not been cancelled. So
it's open to local populations.
Yeah, so it's basically they've said residents. So Saudi citizens and even non-Saudis, but who are residents, they're able to go for Hajj, but they said very minimal numbers. Like, I think one of the reports said like 1,000 people.
Which is why I think we could say it's effectively cancelled. You know, you normally have like 2.5, sometimes up to 3 million people swarming Mecca and its precinct overnight. That's true,
because the thing is, like, Hajj is... It's got that special status, that aura for those who travel there, like who come from far-flung places all across the globe to gather to that place. If you're already there, then, of course, Hajj is still incredibly important, but it doesn't carry the same grandeur that Hajj always has.
And I do want to share some of my personal experiences as well. I had the privilege, the opportunity, the blessing of Allah to actually live in Medina for 2 years whilst I was studying Arabic there. And I was one of those people who actually caught a cab down to do my Hajj.
That's awesome.
So later on in this episode, inshallah, I'll share some of those experiences with our audience as well.
Yeah, but Saudi's been pretty badly smashed by COVID issues. Like, you know, a lot of places around the world, they've got over 2,000 deaths, you know, a couple of 100,000 cases. So maybe we can show look at how the Haram was post-COVID pre and post-COVID. So you can see like massive difference. Like, we're so used to seeing that sea of people around the Kaaba, and then just, you can see the other side of the image, just like blank and empty. It's pretty heartbreaking, unfortunately.
Yeah, and this other image here as well, you can maybe count those people on your hands, on your fingertips. So there's very, very few people there, and it's
more than 10 fingerprints.
So okay, Hamza. Let's not get technical now. Very few people there, and just that scarcity it's frightening, you know, to see. And at the same time, it shows just how, you know, everything is in the hands of Allah, Subhanallah. Like in a matter of just moments, bang, entire, sort of armies are kept at bay. Entire stadiums that were just swarming with supporters for massive organized sporting events, right? Including the Olympics as well, which may be affected. But and then the Hajj itself, like bang, 2.5 million people no longer going to be swarming that city. So
so big religious festivals, sort of spiritual experiences, you know, really, really important stuff that you know, Saudi hosts for, you know, people around the world. Unfortunately, not really happening. So we thought we'd show you a clip of, you know, one of those really, really important things that Saudi provides, a service to humanity, you could say, and how that's been affected.
It's been cancelled. So let's have a look at this.
It's really saddening. And awkward pause. Sorry, which video? Don't want to give it away.
We do want to give it away. Tech guy. We need to give our tech guy a name.
This was meant to be Saudi's big
not that one.
Gathering of
the festival, the festival.
Around at least 400,000 people. State-run broadcaster Al Arabia said that was an even bigger crowd than festivals such as Coachella in the U.S. or Tomorrowland in Belgium.
Middleby's 2019 has been a magical sensory overload of joy, wonder and bliss, and it's truly fantastic and a privilege to be a part of.
Yeah, can we just take a moment to appreciate the fact that this guy flew in from another galaxy? Like, it's just wow.
There's a
subhanallah.
point where it no longer looks like a costume. It's something.
It's like it's an expression of his personality that's come out. But, you know, mashallah, Saudi is fantastic. They're hosting Hajj. They're hosting
Absolutely.
400,000 strong music festivals. You know, these protectors of these glorious
Custodians
masajid
of the
and
two holy lands.
incredible. Look at these wonderfully spiritual experiences.
Just
they're
on that
providing.
note as well, before we move on, there was something, you know, we joke about it, but honestly, it's really sad. It's actually quite saddening. It's quite depressing to some extent as well, that these people that have been entrusted with such a massive responsibility of maintaining the city of the Prophet, you know, and the holiest city in the world, have sort of just, you know, done a complete failure of it. Like they have just thrown it by the wayside. So we've got, it's not just that. There was I think it's called Vogue Arabia or Vogue Arab. There was a magazine, which is a US-based magazine, that was running a photo shoot of some Lebanese photographer, right? And they chose, subhanallah, they said for aesthetic and artistic purposes that Medina and Al-Ula province within Medina would be the perfect place to do this photo shoot. And don't get me wrong, it's not just a regular photo shoot, it's this sort of highly inappropriate
kind,
as Morocco News today reported a raunchy photo shoot showing semi-naked women in a in the city of Medina, right? And for the rulers of Saudi Arabia to allow that in the city of the Prophet, as if, you know, allowing it anywhere is okay, but surely you've got some red lines that we draw, right? So you know, these concerts and these completely inappropriate photo shoots that are being held but speak volumes about. And the reason we mention that, guys, within the context of Corona and Hajj, is because, you know, the minister of I forget his exact title, but he's responsible for Hajj and for Umrah. This minister, for some reason, look it up, I'm not making this up, but his last name is Ben 10. So
okay, it's not actually Ben 10.
No, it's actually Ben 10.
Wait, no, it's not. It's...
come on, it's Ben 10. Anyway, Hamza's got the details for this podcast, the stats and the names. He can look it up and let us know. But this guy came out when it came to sort of Hajj being quote unquote cancelled or drastically sort of downscaled. And he said that, you know, in the interest of the Muslims and Islam and safety of the population, for the glory of Islam, like he was coming out with these phrases that would sort of champion, you know, the Saudi Arabian government as some kind of bastion of, you know, protecting Islam. You know, that title of custodian of the mosques and protectors of Islam and so forth. The guy's name is Ben 10. You really need
it's
to
not
drop
Ben 10,
it.
but anyway, whatever. It's like Ben Talib or something.
Anyway, it's shortened to Ben 10.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway,
You
so
can have your Ben
that's
10
why we
there.
mention it, because, you know, they come out with this script and this pretense of this is why we are protecting, you know, the lives of the Muslim. We're so concerned with Islam and its sanctity and its sacredness. But at the same time, you've got photo shoots, you've got concerts, and you've got WWE festivals and
All that
matches and
garbage.
stuff. So, you know, read beyond the headlines and see, we should see things for what they really are.
And I think that leads us to our next point of the fact that even Hajj, it's like, it's not immune from this. I use that word deliberately, pun intended, entirely. It's not immune, right? Hajj is a massive resource, economically speaking, for Saudi. It's, I think, in the region of $8 to $12 billion a year, Hajj and Umrah. And that's huge. That, I think I was reading, that's about 20% of non-oil GDP and 7% of overall. That's a big chunk of their economy.
It is.
And
I think it's close to 10 billion, did you say? 10?
yeah, 8 to 12.
8 to 12 billion dollars annual revenue. That's massive.
Huge. And the thing is that I was just looking into some information about it, and oil is projected to perhaps run out within 70 to 90 years for Saudi. So where are they going to go? Like, subhanAllah, it's amazing that the Hajjaj and Hajj is a more renewable resource for Saudi than their oil. Oil will run out, but Muslims will always want to come, always have to come for Hajj, and so they can make massive dollars out of
One of
that.
the reasons that they don't actually have to they don't actually have to advertise. Like it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like there's a lot of economies that in the last decade or so have shifted over to a more tourist-based economy, and to some extent, Saudi Arabia is trying to do the same.
Yeah,
It's attracting, and we're going to talk about that sort of the dynamic between a sacred pilgrimage v tourism that is used for economic profit making. But with Saudi trying to move across to that tourism-based economy, it doesn't have to do any advertising. It doesn't have to attract people because people are always in the massive, in their massive numbers. They're going to be flooding and swarming that city.
But the interesting thing then is that the advertising now comes when they're there.
Yep.
So they don't have to bring them there. People will come. But once they're there, all right, buy this, eat that, stay in this hotel, make sure you have this experience.
Absolutely.
Take this particular tour and whatever else. So they spend a ton on that. And I was reading, I think they want to up it to like 150 billion in the next couple of years or something ridiculous. But
and they also want to up the Umrah. So at the moment, I think there's about 8 million. So there's about 2.5 to 3 million people that attend that Hajj, which is within that 6-day period. Give or take a couple based on when you're coming. But also Umrah is up to about 8 million people attend Umrah every year. So they're thinking of by 2029, not sure why it's 2029 program and not a 2030 program. That's kind of annoying me. But by 2029...
There is a Saudi 2030 program, I forget.
they want to up those numbers to 30 million. 30 million mu'tamirin, people who do Umrah every year. So they are seriously thinking of upping this Hajj and Umrah program as a source of boosting their economy. Can we just get a video? We had the Contagion Corona video just to have a look at the fact that, Saudi is using it as a source of their
This was meant
economic.
to be Saudi's big year, hosting the G20 gathering of world leaders as it attempts to move away from being an oil-dependent economy. It's already opened itself up to tourism, concerts and glitzy sporting events. But having eased lockdown measures at the end of May, it's now seeing a second wave of new coronavirus infections, forcing it to consider cancelling its biggest event, one that generates nearly £5 billion in revenue every year.
I think the Saudi authorities...
Yeah, so, same sort of thing where you've got Western news reporters, commentators sort of coming down. There was a bunch of videos to choose from, and so we chose the most random one there. But there was a ton of videos talking about, and someone, just go out and check it out, like on Google, so if you type in Hajj, Umrah, source of revenue, economic, it's massive. There's a lot of reports on it. But with that also, with Hajj generally, there's a big irony to, I sort of made reference to this in the introduction. We're talking about people are trying to move away from the life that we know, at least people in the West, that life of consumerism, materialism, right? And you're trying to move it. And the irony is that you actually, you're trying to miss out on the scams and the advertisements smashed in your face, the overconsumption, the capitalism of it, right? But what do you get when you go there? There's this breeding ground for big bucks business, overloaded skyscraping malls, and you've got towering clock towers, right? And you've got
Clock towers towering.
Yes, that's what they do. And high-rise complexes and luxury hotels and stuff. And so there is a question there, right? And we'd love to hear from you guys as well. Do you think, because in our research for this, there's a lot of people that say, I don't know, how do you feel about that? There's a lot of people that say, look, people are coming in for a once-in-a-lifetime, highly strenuous and arduous sort of pilgrimage, right? You've got your elderly, you've got sick people. And so these things are just necessary comforts. I don't know how they stretch that to, you need to have KFC on the vicinity of the Kaaba.
You got to draw a line.
But where do we draw the line? Guys, leave some comments. We want to see what you say and we will read them out. Do you think that we should have things like, what I saw there? You've got KFC and you've got Hardee's just within the vicinity of the Kaaba. You've got these massive, hotels, Oberoi and Hilton and the Grand Royale. I'm making hotel names up now. But you had these massive...
Sounds legit, bro. Don't worry.
You had these massive, right, hotels. I've forgotten it. It's been 6 years now. But massive, everyone knows it, right? And these skyscrapers and do you think that takes away from the sacredness of the pilgrimage, or are they just necessary comforts that we have to provide?
I think
to the pilgrims.
I don't think it's very controversial to say, all right, you're going for Hajj, it's arduous, it's tough, be comfortable, right? And it's a once in a lifetime thing. So, if you don't want to rough it out, then have some kind of comfort. But I think there's a line between comfort and then like capitalism. And then it moves to this like attitude of consuming and throwing it in your face and trying then it's not about comfort. Then it's about you living in excess and some degree of luxury and all that kind of thing. And that's perhaps where the line can move.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that does move it across is actually, just trying to see if we've got some comments whilst we continue our podcast. One of the things that moves it across the border is actually what you find with local service providers. Now, this is something that I want to share my personal experience about, which is that normally if you're catching, from about, again, it's been 6 years now, so I'm not really strong on the details, but I would say about maybe a 10-15k ride, 10-15 kilometers out from the
kilometers. I thought you meant 10-15,000.
No, the 10-15 kilometers out from the vicinity of the Kaaba, and you want to get in, right? So it's about 20-minute ride. Normally that costs about 15 to 20 riyal, right? But during the days of Dhul Qa'dah, which is just before the month of Dhul Hijjah, they bump it up to about 40 to 50 riyal. And then during Dhul Hijjah, they'll bump it up to about 100. And sometimes, during the Ayyam of Hajj, those 6 days, they're bumping that price up to 200 riyal. I'm not kidding you. These are I've seen it with my own eyes, right? I've heard it with my own ears. They will stand there and they'll be calling, these names of cities where they'll say, all right, we're taking you to Jeddah, or say Mecca, Medina. And there's these cab drivers that are standing there in the taxi stands, and they are just killing it. They're absolutely killing it, right? With barbers just pushing the prices up. And it's about the culture that's created, right? Local service providers are, they're governed. They're not just left to do as they please. To some extent, it's regulated, right? And the point is that I think it's that culture that's created that this is money-making season, right? That's where all
2.5 million people have descended on our city. Let's get every dollar out of it.
Absolutely. Now, to what extent does our audience feel that there's something wrong with that? Or is it just purely, let's go with the flow. We do have some comments coming through by our, one guy, mainly. Sadi, you need to put all those comments into just one, please. Same feeling I get the day before I had to hand in my assignments last year. Okay, so that's not a very serious comment. We'll leave it to...
I'm really struggling to find the connection there, but okay.
We'll leave... Sorry.
Maybe not. Maybe we need a filtration system for the comments first.
Yeah. MT, I'm going to leave the comments to you. All right.
Shall we move on to discussion of Hajj, perhaps? Eid.
Eid, yep.
All right. So just... We've spoken about Saudi Hajj and so forth, and sort of the essential point that you can take out of that is the spirit of Hajj is torn completely out by Saudi, right? But then there's also a spirit in celebrations generally. And in our context here in the West, as we experience Eid, we are within that context. And so the attitude towards celebrations can potentially affect us as well. And I just wanted to mention New Year's as a almost completely pure Western celebration. It doesn't have a religious, unless you go all the way back to the origins of the Gregorian calendar, whatever, but no one does that, right? It doesn't have a religious connotation. It's just one day moving to the next and massive party, let's all get smashed and let's have fireworks and all that kind of rubbish, right? But it's an unearned celebration. It's just, let's do it because we can party. And even that, the spirit, when they try to insert a spirit into that of renewal and recommitting and making a resolution, there's always these farcical reports about how, you've got broken New Year's resolutions within a week or two of the new year. But the spirit's not there. There's nothing that's actually holding, giving it an essence. And I think the same applies to holidays like Christmas as well.
Yeah.
The Christmas spirit, I think now is just mythology, right? It's just a myth. It's not actually there. The only spirit of Christmas, unfortunately, these days, and I mean unfortunately from the angle of sort of devout or ardent Christians, is one of spending and is one of just materialism. And
for sure.
That's so devoid of what spirituality and especially, religious traditions would hold sacred.
And it's kind of I think the pattern here is that everything is trumped by capitalism.
Yeah.
Like everything comes under, the stride of capitalism. Like you have to move where capitalism moves, right? That's the thing. Like religion, it really does just get trumped, whether it's Islam and its Eid festivals and its Eid gatherings and its Eid celebrations, or whether it's Christianity with its Christmas, right? Or other religions and their religious celebrations as well. Because what happens on Christmas, right? No, and this happens with Eid in the Muslim countries, is that you get your massive sales. It's the equivalent of your end of year financial sales.
Yeah.
You get your Christmas sales, you get your Boxing Day sales. Like the capitalists are just sitting around saying, let's capitalize on absolutely every single.
Wow, capitalists capitalize.
Yeah, religious,
never guess
non-religious, right? Every single special holiday, every celebration, every special moment that you have.
Like you were saying with like the Hajj period in Saudi. The retail period, the retail Christmas period is like huge. Like
it is.
These retailers and outlets will make like a significant chunk and portion of their yearly takings just from that period
And it's the same with the Eid. This is the point I was making. It's the same with Eid in Dubai, in Pakistan,
for sure.
And in these Muslim countries where they go berserk when the Eid comes around and the sales go through the roof. So it's kind of like a question of, because what's the point of Eid? What's the concept of Eid?
Has Eid possibly become like a Muslim Christmas? Some would suggest perhaps it has. Can we play the video? Please. So some might even think that Eid is basically just a Muslim Christmas
Is
now.
this a result of the so-called war on Christmas?
Well, we have seen over the last decades a fairly relentless effort to drive Christianity out of the public square, to reduce its influence in culture. So I think two things are afoot. The first is the success they've had in reducing that influence in culture, but the other is his drive towards secularization, toward what I call taking Christ out of Christmas, where Christmas becomes more of a winter holiday or simply a bland religious holiday.
A season's greetings.
A season's greetings or a happy holidays type of moment. Right. For Americans, for American Catholics, this is a disturbing trend.
So the same message that, we were talking about earlier, as you've got, it's not just Muslims, like there are Christians and there are others as well that are concerned because, it's absolutely irrespective of what religion or what, grouping we're talking about here. Everyone's sort of feeling the same thing, that there's this other force. It's not religion. There's another force in society, which is the values of society, capitalism, secularism, which are trumping the other ideas out there, which are just sub ideas, and they get bulldozed, in capitalism's stride. But I think Hamza was talking about the fact that
Sufyan's favorite nasheed.
Yeah, don't you even dare! I've been killing him for even including this in our podcast. If we can get.
So this is what can happen if Eid goes down the Christmas road.
Some blessings. La ilaha illallah. Join together, let us all sing. La ilaha illallah.
So there's Hamza's favorite nasheed.
Stop trying to deflect on me, bro.
Don't you even? I didn't know about
like
this.
It doesn't mean that I do.
Absolutely,
right?
my favorite jingle.
A travesty, but Sufyan really wanted to include
my
it.
favorite jingle. So that's your Muslim Christmas, and it's kind of there's a joke to it, and there's a cringe factor. You know what? We should have a little animation of cringe factor. And just a little bar that increases. I think that was 20 out of 10, the cringe factor on that one. With what has become of Eid. But, that said, the fact also is that in the West, things are very different to how they used to be 10 to 15 years ago. Like Eid, for me, I've grown up in, Western Sydney, and as most of us have, right? And it's a Muslim majority area, and you started to see now in the last 5-10 years like massive Eid festivals. There used to be just the one of them, which was the Meth Eid Festival in Fairfield, right?
Completely monopolized the living daylights out of Eid
out of
festivals.
Eid festivals, right? By the way, I had some brothers come down from Melbourne who said, we were like, oh, a massive Eid festival. And they're like, yeah, no, buddy, this is really tiny. If you want to see a massive Eid festival, I think the sort of cultural, what's it called? Like a cultural imperialism of Melbournians was at play in this scene. So if you want to see Eid festivals, you come over to Melbourne. But yeah, Eid festivals, you've got massive, masajid with thousands of worshippers. And there's obviously a positivity to that. On the Eid morning when you shower and you're getting your kids ready and you're perfuming yourself up with your best clothes. The whole vibe, and you're going down towards the mosque and you've got, dozens of people in their niqabs and their jilbabs and their massive beads and like visibly Muslim in the streets, becoming the khilafah.
Awesome.
And you feel like it's the capital of of an Islamic state. I had a look at his comment. What about the experience of people that are living in non-Muslim majority suburb? If there's any of our audience that is living in a non-Muslim majority suburb, we'd actually love to hear from you as well in the comments.
That would be really interesting.
I'd be very interested to see
because I think I can speak for myself, being very sheltered and just being in these like Muslim communities for Eid.
Yeah,
not
Muslim
had to go outside
schools, Muslim communities, Muslim neighborhoods. But I want to know what the Eid of someone who lives in a non-Muslim majority suburb is like somewhere in the eastern suburbs or somewhere away from.
There's some areas in the eastern suburbs that you'd be surprised there's actually a decent amount of Muslims as well. And so they have their own things as well. But yeah, it would be really interesting to note like some very predominantly non-Muslim and very little demographic concentration of Muslims, how Eid would be there. But let me ask you a question.
Yep.
So you're talking about capitalism, spending, all that kind of thing, right? And we're bringing Eid into the equation. What then of Eid gifts? Like we always get Eid gift. We like when we were young, we would always get them. We now want to give them. Like, should we not? Like, what are you suggesting then?
No, not at all. Not saying we shouldn't have
stop
Eid
taking
gifts.
Eid gifts away from
I'm not
the
taking
kids,
your
bro.
Eid gift away, buddy. No one even gifts you Eid gifts.
Get out of here.
No, look, with
no one
Eid
has.
gifts...
That's my trauma coming out. Anyway.
That's actually my trauma. My big trauma is you get to a certain age and it all just becomes about the kids. And then they forget the adults.
So I'll give you an Eid gift this time.
There's a deep seated trauma that we need to discuss. But look, with Eid gifts and the materialism around that, I don't know. This is obviously personal opinion. But I feel like sometimes I do feel that it's getting a little out of hand. Like, the last 10 nights of, if we look at Eid al-Fitr, the last 10 nights of Ramadan are meant to be like the holiest nights. Not meant to be. They are the holiest nights of the entire Islamic year. And they're spent in these multiple rounds of shopping for clothes, for gifts. Not to say that there's something, like absolutely wrong with that, because the sunnah is to wear your best clothes for Eid and to gift. Like generally, the Rasulullah ﷺ is encouraging us to give gifts because it increases the love between your hearts.
So I'll give you a gift. Don't
Thank
worry,
you very much.
I'll give you a hint. Stop dropping hints. I'll give you a
No,
gift.
but on a serious note, like we should encourage gift giving. And then obviously what better time to give gifts than Eid? But I don't know, it's becoming a little out of hand, I feel, where you give,
I think,
a little kid gets like 20 or 30 gifts.
Because you got parents giving a gift and then grandparents and then each aunt and uncle and this kid's going to play with a gift for like a week
2 weeks at most.
And that's it. It's gone. Not to be seen again.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like, is there a way we can draw them back to appreciate the simpler things in life, the bonding, the family time, the cricket in the backyard?
Yeah, like create like an Eid experience instead of like always having just multiple gifts and so. Like when I was young, I remember there was one gift. Like my parents would say, "All right, there's one toy or one gift that you can choose for the year that you get for Eid, and that's it." And so I would value the living hell out of that. Like I would really, really, really want that and just stick with that, and that I would value. And it wouldn't just be this massive influx of all these things that I'm never going to use.
For sure. And then, so there's that aspect as well. But then, when we say Eid is sort of becoming devoid of spirit, and to be honest, we don't know the answers to all of these questions. We're just sort of posing some of these questions out there. Some of them we will suggest what we think, but the concept of the qurbani, like the qurban meat that you're meant to get and have slaughtered or distribute amongst the poor. Like in origin, the idea is, and you see it in the Muslim world, they still maintain it to a large extent. Some places they go crazy with it, where there's, celebrating their livestock, right? But, and my camel's bigger than your camel, right? But here in Australia, if you compare those two experiences, like in the Muslim world, in places, again, my experience in Pakistan, is you go out and you will find yourself, an appropriate sheep or a goat or if you can afford it, something bigger of cattle, and you will take care of it, and you will love it, and you will show it compassion, and then you will carry out that process, of the sunnah practice of slaughtering it in the halal way, cleaning it, skinning it, and then distributing it amongst the poor. But here, it's like another day at the butcher's. You just pre-place your order. It's so capitalism. Like
go there, pick it up.
But it's pre-place your order 10 days in advance. Come and pick it up, and then not even distribute to the poor. Like, yeah, to some extent you can do, but what ends up happening is you give it to your local neighborhood and like your family, friends or something. And again, from my experience in Medina, which is, we did have this beautiful experience on Eid, because I had done Hajj one year, and then the other year, it's discouraged to sort of do it every year as a student. And so I said, okay, and plus I was also sick that year. So I went ahead and I sort of witnessed that process. I went to a slaughterhouse, and I just sat there making videos of sheep being sent to their death all day. So I'm trying to strike conversations with them because no one gave me gifts.
So you went and tried to bond with the sheep.
I did. No, and then they're sent off, right? But it's just beautiful. Like not the blood and the gore, but like it was beautiful because it's like enlivening and like bringing life to the sunnah.
But you know what you said, like with regards to. You take an animal, you care for it, you actually like make sure it's eating,
and
drinking,
you feel a
healthy,
connection to it. Yeah.
And then you sacrifice. Like, that's an actual sacrifice then. Like you're giving something for the sake of Allah.
Yep.
It's so much more meaningful than just like go to the butcher, as you said. Yep. So I wanted to just mention as well, like with regards to celebrations, like Islamically, celebrations are something earned, right? There's something earned. You're meant to do something, and then Allah gives you something at the end of it. So with Eid al-Fitr, you're fasting the month. Once you've done that, Allah gives you Eid, right? And Eid al-Adha is Hajj. Obviously, if we're not there, then we still have the celebration of it. But it's something earned. It's not this meaningless experience. And I think we've sometimes got to really have some moments of introspection and question, like, how much have we deserved this? Like, inshallah, in a couple of days, we will be celebrating Eid. I know myself personally, I probably haven't done nearly as much as I could have in order to actually deserve it. I'm going to celebrate it, inshallah, of course. But what did I actually do to earn it?
Yeah, and we're encouraged to fast as many of these days as we can, the 9 days leading up to Yawm al-Arafah. And then, of course, fast the day of Arafah. And then Eid follows the following day. So we're encouraged to fast these 9 days and roll up our sleeves, figuratively speaking, and take up, greater actions of worship and stuff. And then that's the Eid comes after it. But, that's the point. Like the Eid spirit sort of, I think what we're trying to say is that to bring back the Eid spirit, it will come back by connecting ourselves to worship. Because once you feel, when you put your heart into something and you put your soul into it, and you like figuratively speaking, roll up your sleeves and you do the work, whether it's school or work or university or worship, and you get the reward at the end of it, it just tastes that much sweeter.
Fruits of your labor, as they say.
Absolutely, right? But then because of that spirit that's missing, if you really needed to kill that Eid spirit and it wasn't dead and buried already, then just watch one of these Eid messages from your local Western politician.
Hello. And Eid Mubarak.
I send my warmest wishes to Muslims around the world and here in the United Kingdom.
As the holy month of Ramadan comes to a close, I extend my warmest wishes to Australian Muslims and hope you have a blessed and joyful Eid al-Fitr holiday.
Assalamu alaikum. I would like to wish Eid Mubarak to Muslims in the UK and all around the world who are celebrating Eid.
Yeah, so I think we cut off, not that we wanted to see the rest of that. I think that was very metaphorically and beautifully just cut off because...
So that cringe meter that's going higher and higher, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You get these messages. I just wanted to chuck that in as well because it's so cringe. Like you just get these leaders that don't care less about Muslims. They spent months and years devising plans of how to
demonize
Muslims and exploit
make us
Muslims.
public enemy number one.
Yeah,
and then hey, Congratulations,
Congratulations, Eid. And the worst part of it for me is where they try and capture the Eid message. Like, Eid is all about worship and Allah.
Yeah.
And it's like,
the worst part for me is always the attempts at Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah. The last guy really put in a lot of effort into it.
Turnbull did like Eid al-Fatah or something. I don't know what he was on about.
Yeah, but did you see Jeremy Corbyn? At the end of it, he did a little like one of those African-American gangster things like, Assalamu alaikum. Like as if, it's like indigenous to him. So yeah, they try and they plot and they plan, but Allah plans. That turned very serious. But, these politicians will kill the Eid spirit if it needed any further killing.
But on the topic of sort of the Eid spirit, I say that as though that hasn't been our entire topic so far. But okay, I want to say that I find it, like, without disparaging any Muslims at all, right? I find it quite saddening when I'll go to someone and say, "Oh, what did you do for Eid? Like, how was your Eid?" "I just went to work.
Yeah.
I was at uni. I was at school." Now, look, okay, if it's absolutely unavoidable, different story.
Yep.
But like, surely we can just put a bit of effort to just make it mean something. Like, just put your leave in advance for your workplace, or speak to your teachers and principal or your unit coordinators or whatever, and just sort it out. Just take the time off and give it some importance. It really, like that. When I hear that, I kind of like, I feel that
a part of you dies.
Spirit just sort of withering away.
No, 100%.
Metaphorically,
because when we think about where we've come in the last 10, 15 years. And again, guys, don't get us wrong. Like, don't sit there scratching your head thinking, I don't know what Eid these guys are celebrating, but our Eid is the best. Like, we're there. We're with you. Like, we have the same Eid. And like I said, it's a beautiful sight in the morning and we absolutely love it. Right? But there are things there that we need to work on. And I think it's part of it is about how much we center it. It's just a question of we worry, like, about the future generations as well. Of, like, the connection that we see of politicians in our masajid, right? And we see it just becoming a materialistic thing, it missing out on that Eid spirit of connecting it to worship.
And sacrifice the story behind it all. Like,
absolutely.
Where did that go?
And like doing something about making a point about, if you're going to chuck a sikhi, do it on Eid. Like, make it your big thing. Like, you have to tell your kids, and we have to tell our future generation that this is a big deal. This is Eid. Right?
Because it's like you picture it, right? One generation doesn't give much importance. Next generation, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And you know what frightens me genuinely is that, like, let's be real. We are Muslims. We're competing, quote unquote, ideologically competing with all these other celebrations for our kids' attention, right? So your kid, our kid, whoever, these young Muslims in society, they're going to be bombarded with the Christmases and the Easters and the New Years and the birthdays and even now the rubbish of the Halloweens, right, of the world. They're going to be bombarded, and all their schoolmates are going to be doing it, and the whole society is going to be doing it. All of that's going to happen. And then if we don't make Eid really, really special and let them know that this is your celebration and it means something and it's a core part of who we are, who you are, then there is a risk that they're just going to go down that road. And it's really not hard to go down that road.
Yeah, we're not suggesting that, people are going to ignore Eid and then, rock up to Halloween parties.
No, it's just that there's a risk. Like, if we don't
that it just fades away in the background.
Yeah, you don't want it to fade. Like, there's already this whole sort of, Muslims celebrating, quote unquote, Christmas or other celebrations to be more inclusive and all that kind of thing. It's just it just completely moderates the centrality that Deen should have.
Absolutely.
And that genuinely, like, I feel like, I'm not talking about next year or anything, but generationally, Allah knows, where things could go. And we need a concerted effort to make sure that Eid is special and central to our existence as Muslims.
And one of our take-home messages for this podcast that we wanted to stress was that, like, we need to read the warning signs. That we can't just sit back like spectators or analysts saying, "Oh, Hajj is so heavily commercialized and Eid is losing its spirit." Like as if we're going to write a paper on it. This is our community, right? These are our kids, our future generation. We should, like, make a concerted effort to make a big deal out of our Eid and make it connected to worship. Right?
I even thought, like, something as simple as decorating your house, right? That sends a signal to kids, right? Like, they see all the decorations for other celebrations, this and that, right? make it special. Get your kid to hang up, Eid celebration decorations and put, the names of Allah and, in the fancy glittery, whatever paper that you have and all that kind of thing. Like, just add an atmosphere to it. Give it some life.
For sure. Add that touch, and obviously also make it all centered around worship. Like, make that the big thing.
Sure.
Like, that's our message to you guys tonight, or part of our message to you guys tonight. Let's make Eid. Let's reconnect it back to worship. Like, in these very days, fast. Like, we hope that you fasted today, and may Allah give us tawfiq to fast tomorrow and the day after until Eid comes. And then, when you're in that habit of fasting and then you worship and you celebrate Eid, you'll feel the sweetness of Eid so much more.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's feel that sweetness, and let's feel it by connecting these beautiful days back to worship.
Definitely, inshallah. Should we?
I read your mind. Let's take the live calls.
Let's take the live calls. He read my mind.
I read your mind.
He did indeed. All right, let's take some calls. This should be interesting, inshallah. So we've got the number on Sufyan's head there.
Can we move that out of my face?
0450, right in front. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
0450 774 662. So yeah, let's take some calls and see what you guys think. Look, we did want to sort of focus it a little. So the broad question that we have, or the broad sort of area, is: do you feel like Eid is getting more spiritual and better? Because as Sufyan mentioned, you got the Eid in the Park stuff, you've got festivals in multiple communities and so forth, and you've got different areas. Do you think it's getting better or worse? Okay, it seems like we've got a call.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Who do we have with us?
Yep.
Hello.
Hello. How are we? Who do we have with us tonight?
I can't tell you my name. I please want to stay anonymous.
You wanted to stay anonymous. That's cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, how did you want to respond to our question?
No, I thought you guys were live. I'm watching the podcast, but I thought you guys are going to talk to me.
We are live.
We are going to talk to you. If you have something to say on the topic, we're happy to have this conversation. That's what we're all about at the Convo.
I don't have anything to say. I thought we're going to have a Q&A session.
No worries. Jazakallah khair for your call anyway, brother. Take care. And enjoy your Eid, inshallah.
Okay.
All right.
Bit of a miscommunication there, but the live call feature does work, guys. You saw at the very least.
So that was a test run? We'll call that a test run?
Let's call that a test run. No, I called in. I don't have anything to say, but I just wanted to call in. All right. If you have something to say, call that number 0450 774 662. And we'll keep the conversation going.
Yeah,
as soon as we get another call,
and then we'll
respond to it.
So yeah, Eid, is it getting better, more connected, a better atmosphere, better vibe, or more materialistic, less of a vibe, less of a spirit? Because to be honest, I'm not fully decided on that.
Yeah, nor am I. We had this conversation last night. I actually put it to Hamza. I said, bro, where do you actually...
last night? I thought we meant to have the conversations on the Convo.
Well, where do you actually stand on this? Like, we put the question to each other and said, all right, well, where do we stand on this? Like, because visibly, like I said, those mornings where you see those massive gatherings, but then at the same time, remember, in your experience, what has the Eid prayer been like? As soon as the khutbah, as soon as the khutbah ends,
that's it. Everyone's on. Everyone's running.
Right. Sorry. As soon as the prayer ends and you're meant to have the khutbah, half the congregation gets up and
so much so that it's almost like a defeatist attitude from the khatib, where the khatib says, "Look, it's not fard. So if you want to go, you want to socialize, just do it away from here, so that the people who want to listen to the khutbah can listen to it."
And to be honest, I think that's still a bit of a liberal reaction, because for me, I think in my local masajid, it's been quite conservative. The response has been like, brothers, please, just because it's a sunnah, don't run from it. Like, this is the big thing, you're meant to stay for this khutbah. Please take a seat. Don't leave. It's almost like he's like, guys, come back. Right? And it's sad to see that. Like, we should be. And so that's what we're saying. There's elements of this where on a communal level, it sort of seems more visibly Muslim and visibly celebrated. Yeah. But then there are the connection to worship part seems like it's still missing.
And then the whole the materialistic side of things as well.
Yep.
So there's multiple angles. Like, I remember one of the really, really positive experiences that I had with Eid was, quite a number of years ago when Eid in the Park first started, right, in Homebush.
Yep.
That was huge. That was a massive thing in the community. And there was so much demand. It was really good because, you know, they're having Eid Salah in a nice big open space, and it was really exciting. But they had so much demand that they had to charter buses to get people, and they had like multi-level parking lots full, and you had to go to the next one and the next and the next, and then bus would take you from there to there and whatever. And then you get there, and there's this sea of thousands upon thousands of Muslims there celebrating Eid in their best clothes, right? Looking fantastic, brilliant.
And to a large extent,
of community.
You still have that.
Yeah,
like to a large extent, you still have
even
that.
like the festivals and whatnot, there is a lively atmosphere. But I find it genuinely difficult to reconcile that side of things, like anecdotally what I can see, to what I know of the underlying commercial reality and how capitalism wants to come and
So,
kill
ladies and
everything.
gentlemen, that's the number there up on screen, 0450 774 662. We're actually very excited to see, to get some calls, inshallah, if we get...
Like, I've spoken to Sufyan for a long time, many, many years now. I'd like to speak to other people, if that's possible, please.
Yeah, so we'd like to hear from some of our audience. I know we've got quite a few comments here.
Maybe you can read out some of the comments.
Oh, let's go through some of these comments. So... Oh, Hamza, can we just get back to Ben 10 because that's his name, right?
No, surely it's not actually his name. No, I'm going to Google it.
It says Dr. Muhammad Salih ibn Tahir Ben 10.
Okay, and that's the way you pronounce it, right?
Obviously not.
When they introduce him at conferences, they say Ben 10.
All right. Okay, let's look at some of the other comments. So we're looking at $5 billion revenue from Al Baik, which is an amazingly tasty chicken franchise, which is within the vicinity of Medina. I've tasted it. It's glorious. However, $5 billion revenue from that, yes, a lot of Hujjaj, right? Specifically from one continent in particular, loves that taste, and it will go off in the subcontinent.
So it's subcontinent.
It's not I think it's a Gulf thing. Like it's initiated. Maybe I'm not sure. Some Arab.
No, I mean,
guy
who's got
started
who's got the specific interest in it?
Oh, the subcontinent. There's a lot of brothers and sisters from the subcontinent that absolutely, it just works wonders for their taste buds. But yeah, $5 billion revenue from Al Baik, and it says that you don't need to go to the Gulf anymore. There's a lot of comments here, but luxuries need to be fulfilled after needs and are fulfilled by selling the Ummah's wealth. So a nice dark satirical comment there by brother SMS Sadi Muhammad Saifuddin. But yeah, we'd love to take some calls, inshallah. If you have something to add, if you don't want to name yourself, you want to be anonymous, like our first caller, that's totally cool. But if you can just, weigh in on this conversation about Eid, or to be honest, about any other aspect of our of the
one
podcast.
Thing that I'll weigh in, because clearly I'm a caller who should also be saying what I need to say. But we're talking about capitalism and all that kind of business. You know what really got to me once when I was in Dubai many years ago, was that like a lot of Westerners will holiday in Dubai to shop, and the irony of that just struck me so hard. Like, from Western countries, Western capitals, right, where capitalism is embedded, they want to go to the Gulf and they want to go to places like Dubai because they do capitalism better. They do better shopping. They do better sales. They do better commercialism. They do better materialism. And I'm like, man, what is wrong with the world? Like, the Arab countries, the places where, Muslims are and where there should be some semblance of Islam, are selling capitalist ideology to people, so much so that from back home, from their capitalist backyards, they want to go to the Middle East, and that's where they want to get their fix.
Yeah, that's what it is. So Khair, we'll see. We might wait another 5-ish minutes to see if we get any calls. Otherwise, we might wrap it up there, and we'll see. Maybe we can do a better job of projecting that number beforehand as well, so everyone's aware that there's a live call feature. But yeah, so we what we want to know. Can you not play that? What we want to know is if where do you stand on that conversation with regards to Eid, and how the community is moving? Is it moving closer to what Eid should be like and how it should be celebrated, or do you feel that it's moving further away from it?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like there's like a hurricane of all these other influences that are just coming and sort of sweeping up the community, and sometimes you feel like
it's a tsunami of...
Tsunami or hurricane?
I think it's more like all right, let's run with hurricane.
All right, let's go with hurricane. So like the Muslims, us, we're like this bird stuck in this hurricane that's just trying to figure its way through all this ideology, or a fish in a tsunami, or whatever analogy you want to go with.
I don't know about bird in a hurricane.
We'll
I don't know. It doesn't quite fly with me. But let's just.
I see what you did there. Doesn't quite fly. Well done, sir. Well done.
All right. Khair, we'll cut our losses, and inshallah we'll see how we go with taking live calls next week or next fortnight, next episode, inshallah. We'll definitely project that number beforehand as well, and we'll see how we go with that, inshallah. We'd love to hear you guys. Inshallah, it could be that you're undecided as well. You're not sure exactly where you stand on that question. But what we'll do,
if that's your position, then feel free to get in touch and have that
feel free
conversation.
to call in and khair. So what we'll do is, inshallah, we'll wrap it up here. It has been a good episode. We did enjoy it. We actually really enjoy doing these podcasts. Monday nights have transformed for us, every alternate Monday night. It's been a real transformation. We actually really look forward to it.
It looks like we're getting a call.
Okay, we're getting a call.
All right, Sufyan, you can stop your closing. And they hung up. Well, that was an anticlimax.
Okay.
Sufyan, you can continue.
So let's close it here, inshallah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in.
Jazakallah khair.
Thank you very much. It was lovely seeing the comments, a flutter of comments coming through, and inshallah join us next week. We will be next fortnight we will be advertising in advance, and so inshallah it'll be absolutely amazing if we'll catch you in 2 weeks time on the Convo.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.